Good morning, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at 6036 Southwest Cross Creek Avenue here in Aloha. We're located just to the left of the front doorway, and I'll show the clean out here when I pull the camera out in just a moment. But we're sitting maybe 3-4 feet to the left of the doorway and smack dab right in front of the first foundation vent to the left of the door. In the event this thing ever gets buried, that's a good landmark to go off of. Checking the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water's running, and I've zeroed the foot counter out at the base of the cleanout. Off we go. So immediately into the line, we do have some scale buildup. We'll get a nicer view of that on the way out when the line is drained. It's not an outrageous amount of it, but it creates for a rougher, more jagged texture. It's more prone to debris hanging up in the line, especially improper items. They occasionally go down the line, and or if you have little ones in the house that are still balling their toilet paper up, that's when that texture can sometimes get you. And you can do things like descaling. Generally speaking, I typically start recommending that when I'm seeing quite a bit of debris buildup. Descaling cast iron. At one, you have to find someone who's thorough and doesn't leave a bunch of rust piles behind. But two, it does put some wear and tear on the sewer line doing it, and so I tend not to mess with it unless there's enough buildup to justify it. I'm letting the line drain out here for just a moment. Right as we round this bend, I'm kind of losing sight of it right now. We're going to let the water trickle off here so we can get a better view. But there looked like there was some kind of obstruction right after this turn. Alright, so I just tried to push through it, and I'm not going to attempt it again. What I'm running into here, I'm hoping the water percolates off here well enough we can catch a glimpse of it, but my camera stopped cold. I mean, it just feels like it's hitting a wall. The water's starting to trickle off here, thank goodness. We're going to probably have to let this sit for a few minutes here to drain off completely, but it looks like you've either potentially got a root intrusion and or an offset joint. That stopped me very effectively to the point where I'm worried if I'm forcing my camera through something. You can see it right here we're running up against. I don't want to get my camera stuck in the line, so we're just going to let this thing sit for a minute and see if it'll drain off. Alrighty, now the line's drained off well enough here. We're finally catching a glimpse of that. I only catch it for just a moment. My camera head has to get perfectly up the sidewall of the pipe to get that view. And it's just random when it decides to do that. But it looks like you've got a huge root mass right there. And it's kind of where I would expect to see one. In fact, right as I got here, I mentioned that the most likely culprit here is going to be a root intrusion at the transition joint. Which sure enough, that looks like what we've got here. We might not be quite to the transition, but where I'm locating this is under the driveway. The line jumps under that. It gets about, looks like just over halfway across the driveway, and then turns to shoot out to the road. And this is basically right about where the right-of-way would be. This is often where your line will transition from cast iron to concrete. And those are by far the most likely pipe joints in your line to get a root intrusion. So that looks like what we've got going on here. Big, huge mass, and this is one that's going to cause a backup. It's letting some water past it, but not enough. So what I recommend here, because you've got that, and we don't know what the rest of the line looks like, I recommend drain cleaning to clear out all the debris here that's built up in the line, cut the roots back. That's what they appear to be anyway, is roots. I don't want to push any further into that thing. But rescope, see the rest of the sewer line. It's important to see that. I mean, at this point, I'm going to recommend repairs on it, but we just don't know how far the repairs need to go. You could have more root intrusions beyond this point. That's the concern. So the other reason you want to clean this thing out thoroughly during a rescope, we'll see if you've got good slope and grade still, and if that is the case, you've got a 4-inch clean out here. You've got the setup to do an epoxy liner, which is trenchless. I hate to see anyone have to go tear up that new driveway over there unless it's necessary. But if you've got a lot of pipe here that's out of grade and wonky, that's what will be necessary to correct it. But I'm hoping you might have the makings of something you can do an epoxy liner on here. And in the process of cleaning this out, whether you do an auger, and I would not recommend an auger unless it's just immediately to clear the roots. In the process of running a machine through here, you're going to start knocking rust loose off the pipe wall. So what I would recommend is get out here with a jetter, because you're going to have to probably do some descaling in the process, or at least blasting rust loose. Just simply running those machines at this point will knock stuff loose. So if you're already doing that, you might as well get this thing smoothed out. Take some of that rust layer off the pipe wall and get the line nice and smooth. So drain clean it effectively, and then rescope and see what we're working with here, and how extensive those repairs need to be. After any repair work, in the event I'm not out here for a rescope, make sure you do a rescope after any repairs are completed, whether you're doing a trenchless liner or a traditional style dig. If you do a dig type repair, you want to make sure that rescope is happening after the line is buried, not beforehand. You want to get the line all compacted and ready for concrete to be poured, but don't pour it until you scope it and make sure everything looks good and there's no settling problems. So right now, I'm not going to go and mark the drive. This is basically right where the driveway is meeting the right-of-way area. I'm getting around 4.5 feet deep here. But before I go and put a whole bunch of paint markings on a new driveway, I think it makes more sense to get this thing cleaned out first to see how extensive the repairs are needed here.